This is Tommy's Outdoors 61. And our guest today is Shane McAuliffe, who is a farmer, first and foremost. He is also an undisputed expert in African swine fever. So African swine fever, it's a fairly nasty disease that affects domestic pigs and also affects wild boar. And especially all the hunters, but not only hunters, also hikers, also just the regular tourists who are traveling to countries that have African swine fever present on their territory should be aware about African swine fever, what that is, what they shouldn't do when they're traveling back to Ireland or to their respective countries that don't have African swine fever, from the countries where that disease was identified or is present. I'm going to repeat it once again. I know that a lot of hunters are traveling from UK or Ireland or other countries where there was no cases of African swine fever to hunt for a driven hunt for wild boar or just some other type of hunting of wild boar in the countries where African swine fever was identified. And this is very important that they are aware about all the precautions and what they need to do when traveling back to their own country where there is no African swine fever. So very important episode from the perspective of biosecurity. It's all about biosecurity in this episode. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Shane McAuliffe. Right, Shane McAuliffe, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Tommy.
Hi, it's finally we meet, and
yes,
I think that the first time I get to know you on Twitter when you were curating Ireland's farmers account, and I remember that there's a lot of people. Obviously, you're getting a lot of heat. For some reason.
I always do.
You always do, right? I even said, like, you're my favorite bad guy on Twitter one day. And I asked some question, like a genuine question about pig farming and wild boar.
Yeah.
And I sent the question, and I was wondering whether you're going to be defensive about it or whether, like, what's going to be the answer. And you came back with a factual, like a proper answer, and it's like, well, that guy, he knows what he's talking about. And I remember during the week, because it was like a week, we had a couple of interactions, like, well, this is a guy who you can learn a lot. So for all the listeners, Shane McAuliffe 1 on Twitter.
Yeah, Shane McAuliffe 1.
Shane McAuliffe 1. Go give him a follow. Just be warned that your consumption of pork will increase.
Good.
That happened to me.
Well, that's true too. While it's important to talk about pig farming, I have to realize that, the end product is pork, and, for reaching consumers, if I can share recipes on pork or innovative recipes on pork or how you can cook it, well then great. That's going to help me as well. Increasing the consumption.
Yeah. So I was like, it was like a coincide, like I was listening about the diet that the American warfighters are getting, which is a lot of bacon and a lot of that. And then I was listening to you, it's like, and then you go to the show, I'm going to buy pork.
Yeah.
And then and it's like, wow, I never ate so much pork in my life. What happened? I blame Shane.
Excellent. That's a good complaint. It's healthy for you. Full of nutrients, full of vitamins, minerals. You can't complain.
Yeah. I heard that this is like, compared to beef, it's like a lower quality than the beef, but you probably disagree with that.
Quality wise,
or nutrients, or in terms of nutrients density,
they would be both quite the same, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they both have their advantages, and one of them would have higher nutrients, certain nutrients over another ones. So yeah, it's but I'm a beef farmer as well, so
okay, so you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that. You know, if you eat beef or you eat pork, well, that's fine with me. I don't mind.
That's fantastic. Okay, we're here really to talk about African swine fever.
Yes,
and especially from the angle of hunters who might go to the countries that have a wild boar population, or you know, whether live in those countries or go to those countries, and whatever happened. And obviously, as a pig farmer, that's a great interest for you, like what's going on. But before we're gonna dive deep into African swine fever, you're also planting native woodlands.
Oh yes.
So I would like to start from this, and then go to the African swine fever, and then I hope that I'll be able to do some good hosting and kind of pivot back to the wild and to the.
Sounds good.
So tell me, I think you've been vocal and about that the current model of forestry is bad. The Sitka spruce plantation is essentially desert. There's no life in it. There's a problem with like water pollution, and then it's a lot of chemicals sprayed on that because it's really like a timber factory, nothing more. So tell me why it's good. Why it's good to plant native woodlands, and then what are the biggest obstacles to do that for farmers, from a farmer's perspective?
Well, I don't really know where my sudden interest in native woodland came from. You know, we have really beautiful gardens here around the house. We're very lucky. And I suppose maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of got like an interest in gardening here. And I gradually developed a greater interest and put a lot more of my free time into the gardens here. And that kind of led me on to native woodland and trees and the importance of trees. And yeah, in the last couple of years, every winter I seem to order hundreds and hundreds of bare root native trees and plant them around the farm here or around the other farms. And yeah, I don't know where my interest came from, but like the importance of native trees cannot be underestimated. I mean, we're in this era of global climate catastrophe, and the benefits of them, you know, they're storing carbon, they're giving us oxygen, and you know, that's important with climate change. But also there's the benefits to biodiversity, to soil quality, and you know, for me as a farmer, I will eventually see all these trees that I'm planting here, that they will have a benefit in terms of health and welfare on the cattle, as shelter belts, as and you know, things like that. So, you know, the benefits are just endless, really. Yeah, they really, really are.
And tell me what we have an episode 29, I think, with Kieran Nugent about the native woodlands, and he pointed out to many, you know, problems with, let's say, system for farmers to encourage them, and one of that was like, oh, there's a program that's 5 years, and farmer gets some subsidies, plants the native woodlands, and 5 years up, money's gone, and then you know, farmer gets and cuts all the native woodlands and starts grazing cattle again. So how do you
it is difficult, because we have to realize that farm incomes are at their lowest. You know, farmers, especially beef farmers, especially in the west of Ireland, are really struggling to survive. And, you know, to a lot of farmers, especially the older generation, planting land, there seems to be a stigma with it. It means possibly, are you a failed farmer? You can't make money out of your land, so you're planting it. And I think that's an issue there. And yeah, the premium system, look, you're getting your premium for a couple of years, and then it stops. You know, and again, for native woodland, I mean, it takes quite a long time to mature.
Yeah.
So if you want to earn maximum income from your plantation, you're not going to be looking at native woodland.
Yeah.
So it is difficult. Like we we have a farm which is primarily bog, but we did plant some of that with Sitka spruce in the 1990s. And, you know, of course it's thriving there. It's the soil is perfect for it. It's heavy waterlogged soil. But like I see myself when I go down into that plantation, you know, it is very depressing. It's just dead and dark underneath it. And I really don't like it.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm interested in biodiversity as well, it's, you know, it doesn't have any advantage.
Yeah.
I can totally understand the need to have it. We need to plant more trees.
Yeah.
And if you want to plant Sitka spruce, then that's fine. They're still trees. But for a biodiversity point of view, you know, there's no benefit to Sitka spruce.
Yeah. Is that because they are also, the way they're planted so densely?
That's it. And the fact that the canopy closes over.
So there's no light coming down to the lower.
It's completely like dark underneath. So nothing grows. And, you know, it's quite depressing. It is.
You said that you're interested in biodiversity. So in terms of did you see any benefits for your farm, for the farming, to have like what you understand by biodiversity? Like, well, badgers and like all.
Bees, of course. Bees are important. You know, I'm a farmer, so I'm a food producer, so I know the importance of bees for pollinating crops. So again, here in the garden, I do have quite a lot of pollinator friendly plants and flower beds and so on. Our farm, one of our farms, and our transport company are both business supporters of the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. I believe we were the first two Kerry businesses to become supporters of the plan. And again, a lot of that is, you know, just creating awareness among the community about pollinators and the importance of protecting bees. Other biodiversity on the farm, you know, I do see a lot of mammals, badgers, foxes, a lot of birds, waterfowl. You know, only in the last week now I've seen the white egret has returned. He comes every winter, so he's back on the river, just out there behind the stables again. I do plan to dig out some farm ponds. I have got funding under the Hen Harrier local action plan for we do have a farm in the Hen Harrier area, and we were granted funding to build a farm pond. So we're building that in January. And the idea there is that if we build a pond, it will attract amphibians, and, you know, they are a source of prey for hen harriers.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. And then I have, we're going to plant native flowering hedging around it, and I have a little shelter belt. So again, that'll attract rodents who again will be prey for the hen harrier.
You know, it's fantastic. But at the same time, I don't understand one thing. Like, you are clearly appreciative of wildlife, of biodiversity, of all the animals, big and small, and all that. And yet sometimes it seems like people like you, farmers, who are like-minded, and then and then you look at the groups around ecology and you know, wildlife and so on. And in my head, it's like, wow, these guys should work together. Because really they're talking about the same things. They appreciate the same thing. Yet quite often, when you guys, these two groups, let's say, kind of meet on internet, on social media, is like deadly enemies. It's like, whoa. What's your take on that? Why this is happening?
That is a really good question. I mean, as a farmer, and certainly as a pig farmer, I do get quite a lot of abuse online, and again, it would be from people who would be in that general area, let's say green leaning. Because, you know, you can't deny the fact that for pigs, we don't grow protein in Ireland, so we have to import protein, and our protein comes from North and South America, and that's soybean. So that's why I will get a lot of abuse saying, "Oh, well, you can't be thinking of the environment when you're a pig farmer." But look, I mean, what other option
I never heard that argument.
Like, what other option have I got of growing protein? We don't grow protein here in Ireland. It's all grass for all these dairy cows. It's all grass. So yeah, I don't have an alternative protein source.
And you think that this is the thing? That's the reason?
That's a big part of the problem with commercial pig farming, is that people are saying, oh, well, look, you're destroying the rainforest. Well, no, not really. I'm not destroying the rainforest. I know a lot of our soybean comes from North America. Very few of it does come from South America.
Yeah.
But look, there's no other homegrown protein. We have done research into it. We can't find one that works. We've done a lot of work with our nutritionist, refiguring our diet to lower our protein, and we have successfully lowered our protein, and that in turn lowered the emissions for our pigs. But yeah, it's kind of hard when I put a lot of effort onto the farms here, and especially the beef enterprise, into biodiversity, and someone says, well, no, you're a pig farmer, you can't be environmentally friendly.
This is this thing that people seems to be like, you have to agree on all points with me. And if there's only one thing that because like, okay, fair enough, but then you build a pond for a hair harrier, and you're talking about amphibians, and you're talking about native woodland. It's like, like, well, that guy is an ally.
Yeah.
I mean, like an Irish Wildlife Trust, what I mean? They should put the banner somewhere, or they should, it's like, hey, this guy, right? He's a pig farmer. I was like, no, this little thing, right, that you do different, and like everything. This is,
I know, it's crazy.
You feel upset about it.
Yeah, it's crazy, but like, I'm a farmer, so I don't own the land. I'm a custodian of the land. I have it for future generations, and that's what farmers are. We're custodians of the land, so we're just protecting the land for future generations. And people don't realize that. People think we're out, being destructive. I mean, yeah, of course, I cut the hedge here out on the road. That so, for safety, for both for other road users and for our own vehicles to get in and off the road.
Yeah, but the big climate change warriors, they're ordering 1,000 liters of kerosene for winter as well.
I know. So like,
right?
I might get abuse. I remember getting abuse before for cutting my hedges online. But what that person didn't realize is, I have those hedges on the road cut, but I have miles and miles of hedgerows through the farm that don't get touched at all. It's insane.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
And like, and obviously, like in the podcast, I have something I start to be proud of, that I talk with people kind of like on both sides, let's say, right? I hate to think that there are sides, but there kind of are. And there's so many in common, and it's like, why we just can't have a conversation? So, but it's good to hear that from you, and kind of have it on the record. Look, let's jump right back into the African swine fever. I know that I will have a problem with making title of that podcast, because it's the pattern is like something with, and it's like, I don't want the title African Swine Fever with. I don't know. I need to come out with something.
And we still haven't talked about our taxidermy here.
And we talked about taxidermy. Yeah, that's another thing. You actually walked me through your collection of taxidermy, and guys, folks, it's just unreal. Like a kudu is like, that antelope is the size of the horse.
I know.
It's like no, the size of the horse.
It's a beauty.
Is a beauty, and the mass of the horns is like. So I'm more than happy to talk about it. But I had an episode of the podcast with my friend who lives in Scotland, Matt Cross. He's a field sport journalist, and we talked about hen harriers, and because there was an issue that the hen harrier was killed, was trapped, and I always put the name of the guest in the title of the podcast. It's like, I can't call it Killing Hen Harriers with Matt Cross, because like, what are you doing? So I kind of don't have his name, but I hope to have him on the podcast again.
And just for the record, I do not have a taxidermy piece of a hen harrier.
No, I can confirm. No hen harrier taxidermy. Oh, okay. So African swine fever. Let's start from the big. So okay. So this is something that you're studying.
Yes. So
you're a vet. Essentially.
No, not necessarily. No, I have. I went to the Royal Vet College and graduated with a master's in pig health. And,
okay.
Specializing in infectious diseases, biosecurity, things like that. But yeah, I would primarily say I'm a farmer before anything else, but also on the Irish Farmers Association National Pig Committee, I'm looking after health and welfare there. Secretary of the Pig Health Society as well. So everything I do is surrounding health and welfare of pigs in Ireland. Yeah.
So you are a perfect person. You're an expert, ideal guest to talk about African swine fever. Let's start from the very beginning. What is African swine fever?
African swine fever is a virus, a disease caused by a virus, a very complex DNA virus. It was first found in Kenya in the 1920s, and it is found throughout sub-Saharan Africa. In the 1980s, it jumped to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, also got up into other parts of Western Europe. And in fact, one of the conditions for Spain and Portugal to join the European community at the time, as it was known, the European Union, was to eradicate it. So they got rid of it, and they were both eligible to join.
Okay, and what year was it?
That was in the mid-80s, 86, I believe, Spain and Portugal joined. And then it actually remains endemic in Sardinia. It got to Sardinia then, and they haven't been able to eradicate it.
But was it in a wild population?
Yeah, and it got into domestic pigs as well.
Okay.
And
so that was that issue, that once it's kind of identified or it shows up in the wild population, then it makes a jump.
Yeah, the spread is very, very quick, mainly through pig-to-pig contact, direct contact, also through people, equipment, vehicles. It survives in the meat. It survives in the blood. And then in 2007, it jumped to Georgia in the Caucasus, and that was they believe from a container that left the east coast of Africa, and from Georgia then it spread rapidly through the rest of the Caucasus and into Russia and into Eastern Europe. And while the Russians very much have it under control since, it spread more quickly throughout Eastern Europe in 2017, and then last August it was found in China. Yeah, and China has half of the world's global population of pigs, and the estimates show anywhere between 30 to 50% of them have already been culled.
Wow.
It is phenomenal. I mean, in a space of 14 months, the level of pigs that were culled in China was the same as the entire European Union pig herd.
Gee.
It is phenomenal. I can't describe how bad this is affecting China. And as farmers, we had our worst year in pig production last year. We were getting €1.40 a kilo. Our break even is 160. And last year was very tough. And the result in China has meant that there is a global shortage of pork. And we've now gone in a space of very few months, we've gone from having our worst ever prices to our best ever. We're currently well in excess of €2 a kilo. And this has never happened before in the history of pig farming in Ireland. And this is all because of China. And there just
is one would say that you're actually benefiting from the African swine fever.
Yeah, we certainly are. Every cloud has a silver lining. And long may it continue, because we have to recoup the losses from the last couple of years, because it's been devastating. But the thing is that we have to keep it out. Yes. If it got into Ireland, we would shut down tomorrow morning. We would lose all our export markets. And in Ireland, as pig farmers, we rely on our export markets. Last year, exported €700 million worth of pig meat from Ireland. And that's not bad, considering there's just about 300 pig farmers in Ireland. So it's the third biggest agri output after beef and dairy.
Yeah. So listen, like in the natural environment, African swine fever, like is it, because obviously in the setting of farming it's devastating, but how does it work is it like population? So what are the animals that are carrying? Is it like a wild boar, but in
virus,
Africa?
yeah.
But in Africa, what is it going to be, like a warthog?
The warthogs, exactly. Yeah. So first found in warthogs, and it affects all pigs.
And is it affecting warthogs, or is it
Yes,
like warthogs can just live with it happily, and but the domestic pig dies, or is it?
Oh yeah, it still affects warthogs. Not as much now, because we've seen that it's more prominent now in other parts of Africa. But yeah, it can still affect warthogs and other types of pig as well.
But so what I'm aiming here at is like, when it got into the population of pigs, it is devastating, right?
Yeah,
it's just horror, right? But how does it work in the wild? Is it like, because the animals are not so densely packed, that's why, okay, whoever have it, then they're gonna die, or whether they have like a higher level of resistance to that virus in the nature? Like, how does that work?
Well, the thing with the wild boar is that you'll see a carcass. That's your first sign, is a carcass will be lying there, and pigs are omnivores. They eat meat, and they will eat a carcass. They will scavenge at a carcass, and that carries the virus then to the pigs that have just consumed that dead pig, and it keeps spreading. So the infected meat is a big part of it.
Yeah, but I mean, nature has a way to keep tabs on it. So this is what I'm because like when you have in a farm, you have a African swine fever, it's not gonna go away.
No.
The whole farm, if you're not gonna do anything, the whole farm will be dead.
Yeah.
Now, how does it work in nature? Is like, is it because the animals are not more sparse? Is like whoever got them, they will die, and then it's not gonna spread any further? Or is it like any other way that the animals will kind of like, what's the natural way to keep tabs on it?
Well, again, the virus is so resistant, it'll survive in the meat, and they've seen now in some cases that passing through, let's say, they've seen it in the Baltics, wild boar running through a field of grain, a field of crops, that the crops will hold the virus as well. So the way it spreads is really, it's phenomenal, really. It's through any sort of means. Right. But primarily, in your wild boar populations, spread through infected.
And is there been observed any resistance to the virus among the wild pigs? Or so essentially, the population, what you're saying is the population of wild boar, if they got it, that population is done. Yeah. And that's what we've seen in a lot of cases in Eastern Europe already, that it has, boar numbers are going down. But of course, you have a lot of being culled as well, quite aggressively. Yes, you have a lot of countries who are actively culling wild boar. We've just seen now that Denmark have finished their famous fence. So they have a fence between themselves and Germany. Yeah, and it's to keep the wild boar out. And I was in Denmark a few weeks ago, and I met the authorities there, and their official figure a few weeks ago was that they have 25 wild boar left in Denmark. So they're getting rid of all of them, and they're just killing all the boar. Yeah. Wow, that's kind of extreme. It's extreme, and of course there's a lot of issues there. But in Europe, it is a native animal. It is seen as invasive, as an alien species in the likes of the US and Australia, and they do a lot of culling of them out there. That's a different story, like what happens in Texas, right? Exactly. But in terms of continental Europe, well then, there's issues there. I mean, they are a pest to farming, to crops, to road traffic accidents. There's a big problem with them there. In fact, that was how a recent outbreak in Poland was found, because we saw a few weeks ago that it jumped 300 kilometers west in Poland. All along, it had been along with the border to Belarus, and it's now 800 kilometers within the German border. And the only reason they found that was because of
a boar was hit in a road traffic collision,
Yeah.
and that boar was tested and found to have the virus.
Would you say that it's getting worse? Or because you said like it was first identified like in 19, which one was it, 19?
In the 1920s.
1920s.
Yeah.
So is it like always was that the big of a problem? We just didn't hear about it because there was no 24-hour media cycle? Or is it getting worse in the recent times?
I think it's definitely because of the Chinese outbreak. That has really put it into the media. Russia 10 years ago, it was a lot of talk about it then, but you know they did quite a lot of good work to contain it, and parts of Eastern Europe have mainly seen it in only wild boar. Backyard pigs, yes, they've seen it, but your intensive commercial farms have been able to stay clear of it for the most part. But again, in the last year or two, Romania, Bulgaria being hit heavily in their commercial farms as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is caused by the this virus being in the wild.
Wild boar, a big part of the spread in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
But we also know humans are spreading it. Like for example, that case there in Poland the last couple of weeks, a 300-kilometer jump, that was not by a wild boar. That was something to do with a human, either a human bringing infected pig meat, discarding it incorrectly in a forest or something, and then wild boar consuming it. I don't know. But that was certainly the case we saw in Belgium last year in September 2018.
Yeah.
That's the most westerly point, and it was found in a population of wild boar in southern Belgium.
Right.
And that was because someone brought contaminated pig meat into Belgium and discarded it in a forest, and it was consumed by a wild boar. Yeah.
Wow. So this is really what you're like, I mean, you and your colleague farmers are observing, like this front that is approaching in Europe more and more west. And
exactly. So this is why we are putting a lot of the pressure on the Department of Agriculture's National Disease Control Centre to have more prominent signs at Dublin Airport, because the signage is very, very poor.
Yeah.
You really wouldn't see it at all until you look for it. If you go to the baggage the baggage carousels, you'll see the signs there. But if you're travelling through Dublin Airport, you're not going to see it.
Yeah. So that we're getting now into this subject, like, you know, hunters who are either, so let's start like hunters who are actually live in countries affected, right? In Germany, in Poland, like what they should do different. What's a precaution that they should take?
Well, there's quite a lot of information out there on the internet from the European Commission and the Global Framework for Progressive Control of Transboundary Animal Diseases on what hunters should be doing. Because we know that they're very important, because they can either help limit the spread, help control it, or they could be the cause of the spread.
Yeah. They right in the center of it.
They are. And it's very important for us to know as well that local hunters play a pivotal role in carcass detection, because they are among the main experts of an infected area.
Yeah.
So, you know, basic things like ensuring that they're cleaning and disinfecting their hunting equipment, washing their clothes and their footwear. Also very important regarding the transportation of a wild boar carcass from the hunting spot to the dressing facility. Making sure that the transportation they use is safe, that there's no blood flowing, no blood spots, and then proper disposal of the offal, burning it in a pit and so on. So that there's a lot of key biosecurity measures that hunters should be doing when hunting wild boar. Is
it possible to detect or tell that boar was infected or is infected? Because I mean, you know, this is all good and well, but now when you think about the reality of a hunter in the woods, shoot the boar, right? You need to gut the animal as quickly as possible because it starts bloating, right? So you gut the animal, right? You know, it's unlikely that you're then gonna carry an offal with you in a separate bag, right? It's impossible to ensure there's no blood spots because by the fact of shooting the boar, you straight away have a blood trail on it and so on. So is it like, recommendations that nobody really looks at it seriously? Because every law that is impossible to follow is just not being followed.
I believe that there's different laws depending on different countries and different areas. So it depends very much on whether there's been wild boar found with the virus in that area. If that area is free from the virus, and again, you'll have the European legislation, but underneath that you will have the national governments putting their own laws and recommendations on hunters as well. So it does vary between country to country.
Yeah, but it seems like it's very hard to contain. And can you tell that the boar is
well, I suppose the most obvious sign is you'd be finding a dead carcass. That would be quite
but for example with CWD in deer, right? For a long time it's hard to detect, but then you see the animals who are clearly affected. Are there signs like this in the wild boar? So the hunter goes through the woods and see the boar and say like, well, I seen that boar. Because obviously we all know, it's much easier from seeing the animal, to the point of actually taking a shot. It's a long story, right? It's not immediate. But he's like, hey, I saw that boar, and that doesn't look good. Are there signs like that?
There would be clinical signs, but it would be quite hard to spot them because there's a lot of diseases that you'd have in pigs that have similar clinical signs. So a lot of it would require serology and to do blood testing to see if the virus is there or not.
But what would be the most obvious, like in a final stage, or like for example, if you've seen a boar with this and this, or you're very concerned, what would that be?
I suppose, well, other than finding a dead one, you would have bluish ears again, but that's very hard for me to detect in a wild boar when I'm trained to look out for a pink pig for blue ears. So I'm not sure exactly how I can spot that in a wild boar.
But I mean, like a hunter, like how they can see that something is wrong with it. So it's either hard to detect that way.
It would be, a bloated carcass maybe, but again, there's a lot of clinical signs you'd see in other diseases as well that would have a bloated carcass. So it's difficult like that.
Okay. So what we are established is so far, like you have the disease out in the wild. Wild boar population is affected. Are these the only animals? Are bears affected?
No, just pigs.
Just pigs?
Yeah.
So is it to do with the genetics of the pig that other animals are not?
It's the complexity of the virus. It's just so complex. And it's only affecting pigs.
And all the pigs are actually the same animal, right? So scroffa.
Yeah, wild boar, warthogs, domestic pig. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's only affecting these animals. And can humans be affected by? Okay, no, so you can eat the carcass of the boar.
Exactly. You can eat pig meat that has the virus. There's no problem there, but we have seen that's causing the spread as well, and that's a big worry. And that's why we have the controls at the border points. So, for example, with China having the virus, we have detector dogs at Dublin Airport, and these dogs are looking for meat in luggage, in passengers' luggage, because we know that a lot of tourists will bring their own food with them.
Yes.
There's also concern that we do have, relatively large populations of Romanians, Lithuanians, Polish in Ireland. And our worry is, you as a Polish person going home for a trip, maybe you might miss your traditional Polish dishes, and maybe you'll bring some Polish pig meat back. And perhaps you don't know if that Polish pig meat is infected, and that's why we.
And based on what you're saying, it can be, and I'm good.
Oh yeah, you're fine. It's perfectly safe to eat. But the worry is that if you brought that into Ireland and it was discarded incorrectly. Now, I have to say we're very, very lucky we don't have wild boar in Ireland. That's a big plus we have. But if we did, for example, if it was discarded in a forest and it was consumed by a wild boar, then that would mean that the country would come down, and that's a big problem. The likes of the UK now, the Forest of Dean have a massive population of wild boar, and they're very worried about people feeding them because the UK is not self-sufficient in pig meat. It imports quite a lot of it, so there's a worry there that there could be pig meat that has the virus and it ends up in pigs.
So if that virus is not, harmful to people, why do you see the entire farms of pigs being, killed and burned, rather than like, well, let's make a pork out of it and freeze it, at least use it that way? Is it then because of the concerns of that it's gonna get spread, or is it like nobody will buy it because they just like, oh, I'm not buying this thing?
That's a good question. I suppose maybe a bit of both, but it is listed as a notifiable disease. There is no cure for it, and it is going to cause
no cure.
There's no cure.
So that was
there's no vaccine. So that's the only way you can stop it is culling affected pigs.
How far we are from having vaccine? Because surely people are working on it.
Oh yeah, there's
a lot of money to be made.
There's a lot of money being pumped into it, all right. But in the pharmaceutical industry, we see that if you develop a vaccine, it takes 10 to 15 years before it reaches the market. So let's say if they find a cure for it now,
right,
it'll be a long time before we actually get that in a bottle.
Right.
So that, of course, that's a worry as well.
Okay. So going back to a hunter who shot the boar. So one thing is okay, they can just consume that boar. So it's really the only concern is like, do not discard it in a, not irresponsible manner. Because I mean, like, over the last couple of years, I traveled back out in Ireland, both in the airplane and in the car. I don't know what those sniffer dogs are, but I mean, I can clearly see someone shooting a boar, right, in Poland.
Yeah.
Putting that in a freezer, in a little cooler freezer in the car, powered by little 12-volt socket, and 2 days later, I'm in Ireland.
That's the worry. That is our worry.
Yeah.
And I mean, that person, his car is infected now. His his clothing, his hunting equipment, all of it has the virus on it.
Really?
And that is the concern.
How'd you remove that?
You would have to disinfect it.
Yeah, but like how? Like, is it like a soapy water or?
Well, you'd have to use a properly approved disinfectant.
Seriously, so it's not even like you take your white spirit, or you take your Domestos or whatever else, and wipe it clean.
I'm not sure if Domestos or the likes of white spirits would be enough to kill the virus. I don't think so. You'd have to use a disinfectant.
It must feel desperate to you, because it seems like, to me, like when I'm hear about it, I've thing that I thought I had in the back of my head is like, there's no way that the hunters will, equip themselves in a special disinfectant and will be disinfecting their clothes and their car and all that. It's like, maybe they should.
Yeah, they should.
But it's like, you know what I mean? It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, if there's hunters who are going on hunting expedition trips to Eastern Europe or places with wild boar, they have to disinfect their clothing. They have to disinfect their hunting equipment. Perhaps leave your hunting clothing out there and dispose of it, and your footwear, because I mean, if the virus gets in here, that's the end of pig farming in Ireland. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but I mean, like there are no means to there's nobody enforcing that.
Well,
right?
when you land at Dublin Airport, if you've been in contact with livestock abroad, you have to go to the Department of Agriculture desk. You have to declare that you've been in contact with livestock. The department officials...
Nobody knows that.
I know, that's the problem.
Nobody knows that.
Yeah. I know, that's the problem.
I mean, like, a lot of my friends, they're going to Poland, they go in a farm, and they're on their family farm where the wild boar is running around. Yeah. Right, and they're coming back, and it's like, hey,
and they don't know.
Lovely,
that's the problem. So we've been trying to put pressure on the airlines, especially those like Ryanair you know, Blue Air in Romania, Aeroflot in Russia, who are flying in from areas with ASF. Please play the message to remind passengers to declare themselves at the Department of Agriculture.
And
desk.
what then is happening?
So what happens there, when you declare yourself, you'll meet a department official. They will assess where you've come from, if you've been in contact with pigs or so on, and they will give you the advice. So I was in contact with pigs in Italy this year with Ojeski's disease, which is a disease we eradicated a long time ago in Ireland. So because of being on that farm, the officials at Dublin Airport took my shoes, disinfected them, and so on. Now I had disposable
Like
clothing
shoes and stuff.
on that farm, so the risk was relatively low. But if I had been, you know, in direct contact with these pigs in my own clothes, then they would have told me, you know, you need to wash them at this temperature, so on.
Yeah. Okay. So is the temperature killing the virus?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, you can kill it with high temperature, yeah.
What's the temperature?
I think it's 100 degrees Celsius.
100 degrees Celsius.
I believe so. For African
Okay,
swine fever,
so even if you eat meat, you know, it's cooked, the virus is dead.
it survives in cooked meat.
Are you kidding me? That keeps amazing me. So
Yeah,
it's being
survives.
killed by the temperature, but it survives in the cooked meat.
Mm-hmm.
How that's possible? How's that even possible?
Well, again, it's the temperature that you're cooking it at.
Yeah.
It needs to be cooked at a certain
And the
temperature.
the officials of the Department of Agriculture, are they trained? Because
I would hope so.
because I feel like if I land in the airport and go to the official at the desk, it's like, hey, I've been in country, I've been in Poland, and I was in contact with a wild boar, right? And I might be wrong, but I would expect that I would see like a guy or a gal looking at me with the big eyes and like, okay,
Yeah. Well,
I'm declaring that I'm like, okay, you go.
Well, I would certainly think that they should be taking it seriously.
They should,
I'm meeting the National Disease Control Centre again on Monday for an update on things. So we will be talking to them about the airports. Now, the risk of infected pig meat coming through the airport and ending up in the pig population is low. It is a low risk, but it's still a risk.
Yes.
It's still a risk. And it's still something, I think with the millions of passengers that pass through Dublin Airport, it is a good place for awareness.
Right.
It really is.
What would you advise to a person who's coming back from the area? They had a contact with a livestock or maybe with wild boar or maybe a hunter, right? And that hunter goes through the airport, declares that you've been in contact, is met with the blank stare, and it's like, what do you would advise to that person to do next?
Well,
when they go, other than burn all your clothes and shoes and all that, right? Because that's quite expensive technical clothes as well. So what would you do?
Well, first of all, if someone has been in an area with African swine fever, they are not allowed to bring back pig meat into Ireland. That's the first thing. You cannot bring pig meat back. Whether it's you've been to Poland, the Baltics, Romania, China, Russia, wherever. If there's African swine fever there, you cannot bring pig meat back into Ireland.
And that includes wild boar.
That would include wild boar. Yeah.
Even
in the ASF affected areas, yes.
Okay, in the areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Even cooked, even sausage.
Can't bring anything in. You cannot bring Polish pig meat in your luggage. Nothing like that. No.
Okay.
So that's the first step, is you cannot bring it into Ireland. The second step is if, yes, you have been in contact with livestock, with pigs, you have to declare it at the Department of Agriculture and you need to tell them what happened. And again, they'll assess it for you and they'll tell you what to do. If you're a hunter, again, your hunting equipment, you need to have it properly cleaned and disinfected. And that's the big part of that. Clothing as well, you need to wash, disinfect your clothing and your footwear.
Yeah. So what would you use for disinfecting? Because I'm what I'm heading with this is, if someone wants to do the right thing, right? I want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I was out there, I was hunting boar. I want to do the right thing. I landed in the Shannon Airport or Cork Airport. I declared everything.
Yeah.
People said like, well, yeah, you're good to go, right? And here I'm the next day at home, looking at my clothes or looking at my gun, and it's like, well, I need to do
Yeah.
something about it.
Well,
What would you advise that person to do?
you need to stay away from Irish pigs. That's the first thing. Yeah,
That's a good
do
one.
not go to a pig farm. If you've been in contact with the pigs abroad, you're not going to be let onto my own farm for a 7-day period. You have to be free from pigs abroad for 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah,
Why is it 7 days?
And that's just the rule we have on our farm.
Okay.
In general, let's say if we had any of our nutritionists visit us or our vets, they would have to be 3 days free from pigs, from Irish pigs, before visiting us. But if you were with pigs abroad, you would have to be free at least 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you think that this gives that time where people will change the clothes and take a shower,
have
and
enough showers and so on. But yeah, if you have pigs or if you're going to be in contact with pigs, don't. You know, if you've come from an infected area.
Right.
That's the big
That's
thing.
and that's very, very worrying, really, what you're saying, because I thought that maybe not you, but there are like a certain rules that you need to do this, you need to do that.
No.
And there's really not really. It's a virus. There's no cure for that, and
No
you need
cure.
to disinfect the stuff. And it's like it's really hard.
Yeah. Oh, it is. But of course, you know, you have to be practical as well. As long as you're cleaning and disinfecting your hunting equipment, as long as you're not coming in contact with Irish pigs after you've been abroad with other pigs, then the risk is almost not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of brings me to the point where you're obviously it makes it stands a hair on the back of your neck when people are talking about reintroduction of wild boar,
yes,
and all that, right? And there are quite a lot of that right now. Is it worrying?
It is worrying, because wild boar are an invasive species in Ireland. It's as simple as that. And there's
but they were in Ireland. They were native to Ireland, right? This is this argument about invasive and non-invasive that I really have a problem with quite often, because the definition is kind of loose.
Yeah, and we have to realize as well that if something is defined as invasive, then it's destructive to our natural habitat, our natural environment. And again, we'll just pick, for example, Japanese knotweed. We know how invasive that is, that it affects native plants and soil erosion and so on. And again, that's the problem with wild boar. They're very destructive. They're extremely destructive to native woodland, for example. They cause soil erosion. They, rooting saplings and trees and so on. They are very destructive animals. And we've seen that in the Forest of Dean, how they're destroying the forest there. And, problems again, like I said, road traffic accidents and so on. They are dangerous animals.
Is that the fact that the Ireland is just too damn small to have these animals? Because it's like the same argument like with wolves. I'm torn, because as a hunter and as a person who likes and loves the wildlife and wild animals, I would love to see wolves and bear and boar and all that. That's a one side, right? Yeah. Okay. Now the reality is like where, like where. I don't see where it could happen.
Exactly, and what is their natural predator? That's the other thing.
Yeah. And there are some arguments for wild boar, like the benefits they do because they're doing this with this and that with the soil and so on and so on. But then probably it's like there is a habitat, and if they have a place to move, then I think that we even have a similar conversation some time ago about how the pig who are being kept outside in a natural environment, they can move, and then they can still get enough nutrients from the natural environment while the other places kind of recuperates. While they're in the one place all the time, then
they'll deplete the soil. Yeah,
they deplete the soil. Is this the same thing that goes?
Well, the thing there with outdoor pigs is we know that people with backyard pigs have very poor biosecurity. So in that case, if you've wild boar in Ireland, how can we guarantee that these people who have a few pigs in their garden have double fencing? How can we guarantee that they have proper cleaning and disinfection protocols? And most importantly, how do we know that they even have a registered pig herd number? Because the law is in Ireland, even if you have a pet pig in your house, you have to have a registered pig herd number. In the outbreak of any disease, you're not going to be found, you know? You could have a pig that could have a devastating notifiable disease, and the department would not know about it because you do not have a herd number and there's no official record of you. So for the likes of backyard pig farmers and people with a few pet pigs, you know, who are registered, they've been getting documentation and leaflets from the Department of Agriculture on African swine fever and on biosecurity for a small scale, you know.
Does the law says that they're going to be punished? Is there any punishment for not registering?
I asked this. I met the Department of Agriculture 2 days ago, and I asked this. I said, "What happens when you find someone with a pig who doesn't have a herd number? Can you make an example out of him or her?" And they said, "Well, it would take a long time to go through the courts to just give them a fine." So there's your answer.
Right.
But that is a worry. If we had wild boar in Ireland, there's a lot of other diseases other than African swine fever they could be spreading to other pigs, whether it's commercial or non-commercial pigs. So there is a lot of issues.
Have you heard about place in Ireland where there are some wild boar? I heard about it. It's not going to be last episode in the time when this one aired, but it's going to on the 57. I don't remember a place, but there is a
the official term is feral pigs. So they might not be true wild boar. They might be half wild boar, or they might be pigs that have somehow escaped and are living ferally. But there is from time to time there are sightings, and then they're reported to the authorities.
So you are aware of that?
Oh yeah. And if you do find pigs in the wild, please let the authorities know, and they'll follow up and deal with that.
Okay. Is it like shoot them? Can you shoot them?
Yeah. They have to be removed. Yeah.
Right. Is that the same species of because pigs like a pink pigs, right? They're is
commercial pigs.
Commercial pig is a sus grafa. Is the wild boar the same one? It's the same pig. It's the same species. They're right.
Yeah.
They have this fantastic way of kind of changing their external properties.
Yes.
I heard of if you take a real commercial pig and you cut it loose, within a number of months it starts getting dark hair and all that. Is that your...
That I'm not sure about, but
if the wild boar is the same species, they kind of physical appearance is different.
Yeah, but we have cases of breeding between them.
Okay.
And a lot of the wild boar, farmed wild boar, shall we say, are not actually true wild boar. They've been bred from one of them, and then crossed with another breed of pig.
Are you concerned that at some point some guy will just get the number 20 wild boar and cut them loose in Wicklow?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's always a concern.
Right. Are we doing anything to prevent that?
Well, again, look, they're listed as an invasive species. You cannot import pigs into Ireland without approval from the department, so that is very strict. The National Pig Health Council look after all of that. You can't import wild boar into Ireland. And then for the pigs that you can import, we would import Danish gilts, young females from time and time, but there's a lot of red tape around that. And it does take quite a long time to go through.
Okay, listen, thanks for that. I hope that our listeners will benefit from that, from especially hunters. Don't bring any meat.
Do not bring meat from any countries with
that's kind of
swine
disappointing
fever.
Because the wild boar this is excellent meat.
It is, and it's a great game meat.
If you shoot one, you would like to freeze it and bring it with you. Is there no way to do it legally?
There wouldn't be. No, there are some farms here in Ireland who have wild boar meat. That would
But I
be
mean,
the
if I
only
have a
legal way.
carcass, right, from Poland, can I get it checked and tested and certified that it's ASF free, and then bring it over to our...
No, you still couldn't. No,
It's impossible.
certainly not in your luggage anyway.
Okay. Okay. So in other words, eat the damn thing where you should it.
Yes, eat and dispose of the offal correctly, and
Right.
the all the inner organs and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Shane, thank you very
No
much.
problem. Thank you,
It's
Tommy.
been a pleasure.